Why are we here on July 7th at 11:30? In February 2026, Bob Rennie, the king of condos in BC, organized in his office an evening with Carney. It cost $1,750 to meet Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, in his office. No journalists. That's often what happens. No journalists, behind closed doors. Don't worry, our Prime Minister is full of virtue, but 17 main developers were there. And they all have one thing in common. Thousands of condos unsold. So that was in February 2026. In March 2026, so a month later, there's a document from BC Housing, speaks to a meeting between the Minister of Housing in BC and Mr. Carney. In May 2026, the CMHC says there are more than 5,000 unsold condos in Vancouver, an increase of 76%, and in Barnaby Richmond specifically. And remember that, because it's important. I want everyone to understand. June 3rd, Brookfield becomes co-owner with $1 million for Concert Property, 8 industrial properties. And so we might wonder if there's a link there, because, just to be clear, the co-ownership is not for condos with Concert Property. So Brookfield, Concert Property, a $1 million deal. They're working together on a project. But Concert Property has projects in the region, including 50 in Barnaby. 50 condo buildings in Barnaby. So we're stretching and we're looking into things, but I think that Canadians have a right to know what's going on. For Brookfield, 15 days earlier, 15 days before the announcement, they are becoming co-owners of this condo company with thousands of condos that haven't been sold. And then all of a sudden, there's announcements in cities and sectors that would interest Brookfield and in which Brookfield has made investments. Should we investigate? Yes. It's the goal of our committee to do so. If there's nothing to hide and everything's fine, well then, we'll carry out the investigation, we'll see that there was no link, and then we'll just look like those asking the wrong questions, but we can't ever get far enough. We never even get any answers. So there's the link between Barnaby and Brookfield. And that's why they were named in the motion. Concert Properties, who created a partnership with Brookfield 15 days before the announcement, will be among the developers from whom the government will be purchasing these condos in the fall. These are just facts. They're not presumptions. They're not accusations. We want to know whether or not they will be among those who will see their condos bought. They've said that it has been said that developers did not request this directly from the Prime Minister, but who did? We want to know how this came about. How did this come about for Mr. Carney? How did you organize all of these meetings with developers who are paying to meet with him, and then you end up with a plan to purchase these condos, and condos from these generous liberal donors, and there's another Brookfield element, and it's up to us to ask questions. We can't be told that we shouldn't. We need to do our work as a committee. We're asking the Liberals to accept that we will hear from witnesses. We will ask the witnesses to explain what happened, and then we'll hear the facts. But we can't even make it there. $659,000 a door. Is that really affordable? I don't know where in Canada $659K is considered affordable, but if for the Liberals paying $659K per door is affordable, there's a problem. I can guarantee that the average Canadian family can't purchase a condo for $659K. Imagine for a house. So if the government is sending a message that that's considered an affordable price, something's not working. Why would you pay over $1 billion with public funds to purchase 2,500 condos? And when we look at the facts, Vancouver is the fifth most expensive area in the world. And there are things that have been done to make the prices go down. If you're a foreign buyer, you're not a Canadian, there's going to be an extra tax. We don't want people from outside the country to purchase these condos, make the prices go up, and not live in them, because then Canadians can't buy them. No Airbnbs. That's finished. We wanted to make the prices go down. Apologies. So, there will be a time where condos aren't selling because of this, and then the market will go down. Supply and demand. Simple. It's not even complicated. At some point, developers that wanted to sell for too much will have a hard time selling. They'll be forced to sell for less, at a discount, at a loss maybe. And who's going to benefit from that? Canadian families. Because when one comes down, the other comes down, and the market comes down. That's what was happening. So the left hand is working to bring down prices, but then the right hand is like, oh, no, actually, I'm going to purchase all of this. I'm going to avoid the market going down, and I'm going to pay for this with taxpayer dollars. So everyone's paying the price. Families can't afford housing for less, and we're taking money from these families who are paying taxes to ensure that the market doesn't come down. And who benefits from that? Rich developers, liberal donors. So again, I think it is legitimate for us to be asking these questions. TD was foreseeing a decrease in prices of 15%. The market was going to adapt. And so that's why clause B and E, I speak to that in our motion. B, D, and E. And I have a question that might be a little bit different from our regular questions, but there is legislation that allows developers to not pay builders until the end of the completion of the building, or if there's a crack in a wall after a certain time or issues with plumbing, often there's an amount that is withheld till the end. And there are rules surrounding this, and I looked into it. Tin Properties, one of the developers in Barnaby, can't sell but isn't being paid. 95% finished but hasn't been paid. There are contractors that are waiting. $1.7 million, $6,000 for electricity, and window workers who also haven't been paid. So there are people who have worked on these condos and businesses who have worked on them, and they still haven't been paid. So when these developers fail, it's the workers who lose out because they're not being paid. But the government thinks it's relevant to spend over $1 billion to help these developers who still haven't paid the workers. And then they're saying that they're doing that for the people. Could they not maybe go from another direction and ensure that people were being paid? If this is to move forward as a project, can we at least get answers? We want to ensure that the businesses who did the work are paid. We want to ensure that families have access to units that are affordable, and ensure that it's not millionaire friends of the Liberal Party who benefit from all of this. Another thing that is clear, Build Canada Homes, another bureaucracy started by Mr. Carney, was supposed to build 1 million homes per year. At the end of this year, there still hasn't been anything built. And just as they did before the end of Parliament, they wanted to move things forward quickly and say that the session was productive, even though they spent more time in backroom deals instead of moving forward on legislation in collaboration with opposition parties. But they're saying they're going to purchase these condos with taxpayer dollars and condos that were not built by Build Canada Homes to increase the percentage to make it seem like they built new homes. They built new homes, and it makes no sense. That's why we're asking questions. You haven't built a single home. Can we know why? When you find out that things aren't working, you're purchasing these condos with taxpayer dollars? If anything, maybe get rid of Build Canada Homes if it's not relevant. And again, this is why we need to ask questions and have the right people answer them. What I've found shocking since this announcement is that when you have a good idea, you want to be proud of that idea because it's a good idea. But what we're seeing now is a little interesting because the Prime Minister of BC and the Premier of BC and the Prime Minister are saying, well, no, it's not my idea, it's your idea. It was your idea. I think that it shows that things are shady. Because if nobody wants to be responsible for the idea, then they must know that the idea is not that great. So again, I think it is relevant that we want to know who had this idea, and we want people to respond to Canadians, not to us. We're here to ask questions, just to inform Canadians. We want Canadians to have access to information. That's all that we're asking. We're asking for an emergency meeting during the summer because we don't want more money spent on scandals. We want taxpayer dollars to be well spent. We want to stop things before they get too far if it's problematic. We don't want to end up in September, October with money spent, and then you find out, well, oops, billions have been spent, Canadians paid for it, and families received nothing. Workers weren't paid. It's only the liberal friends that made money. That's why we're asking questions.